I'm Robin Miller-Brecker.
And I'm Karen Lenzer. Welcome to Seeking Center, the podcast.
Join us each week as we have the conversations and weed through the spiritual and holistic clutter for you. We'll boil it down to what you need to know now.
We're all about total wellness, which to us means building a healthy life on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. We'll talk to the trailblazers who will introduce you to the practices, products, and experiences that may be just what you need to hear about to transform your life.
If you're listening to this, it's no accident. Think of this as your seeking center and your place to seek your center. And for even more mega inspo, sign up for Seeking Center, the newsletter at seekingcenter.app. As Felicia Garrett says, if you've ever had the thought that there has to be more than this, you're right. If you are a regular listener, then you know that is what we are obsessed with on Seeking Center. There is so much more than we can see within and all around us. We're honored to introduce you to the extraordinary Felicia Garrett. She is a certified emotion code, body code practitioner, and life transformational and happiness coach. We had never heard of emotion code and body code work, and whoa, we experienced Felicia's guidance and healing firsthand, and we were blown away. Felicia's goal is to get you unstuck so that you can grow into your highest potential and thrive to live the life you are born to live. In order to get unstuck, you must heal wounds from your past and go deep. What struck us was how quickly Felicia was able to pinpoint our wounds and then help us remove them. She's able to identify behind the scenes factors that are playing a role in some area of dysfunction in your emotional, mental, spiritual, or physical body, or even your financial or relationship experiences. We'll be digging into that. She's also certified in emotional freedom technique, Ho'oponopono therapy, life and success goals coaching, and release technique. She's used these practices in her own life and felt so transformed, she needed to learn them to help heal others. There is so much to discuss. Let's get going. Hi, Felicia.
Hi, Felicia.
Hi. Hello, Karen and Robin. So wonderful and honored to be here.
Oh, the honor's ours, really. We're just so excited. Do you want to just start and share what it is that you do?
What I do is I really help people get unstuck by helping them to identify trapped emotions within their body that can stem from trauma, even trauma that they may have experienced trapped in their mother's womb, all the way up until now. So helping them to identify specific emotions that can be trapped in the organs, the tissues, the muscles of the body, and then clearing that energy to give them a reset. And then I also help with mindset, because mindset is so important. So even if you release emotions that have been trapped within the body, if you don't adjust how you think, if you don't adjust how you perceive your life and your situation, you can stay stuck. So what I help people do is to clear that energy emotionally and then reset mentally.
You talk about emotions being stuck in the body. That may be a new concept for people. What does that mean? And that might tie into this whole idea of emotion code and body code. But can you talk about that? Because that could sound foreign to some.
Yes, absolutely. Everything is energy and everything resonates at a vibration and a frequency. And so negative emotions, particularly like anger, which mostly everyone has experienced some level of anger. So I use this as an example. If you've ever gotten really angry before, we can feel that energy. Our cheeks can get hot, our ears can get hot. We can actually feel the anger on the inside of us. And when that happens, then there are certain organs in the body, particularly for anger, like the liver. It has that same vibrational frequency and energy as the vibration of anger and frustration. So when you feel that emotion, that energy can get trapped within that particular organ of the body or within the tissue or wherever there's a weakness in the body. And then you can go on about life and you can forgive and let bygones be bygones and you can let it go. But that energy can stay trapped because of that vibration and that frequency. And then later in life, you can experience anger again and it can activate that energy that's already trapped within the organ, the tissue, the weak spot within that body. And then it just continues to grow. Does that make sense?
Oh, you explained that really well.
And it is the source of disease, is it not?
Yes, because the organs can replenish themselves. Our body is amazing. It can replenish itself, rejuvenate itself. For example, like the liver, every 7 years, your liver can reset and rejuvenate itself. It's put in the right environment if the right things are going out. And so a lot of times people people will focus on the physical. What am I eating? What am I drinking? Am I getting exercise? But they can negate the trapped emotions that can affect that organ just as much as what you're taking in physically, food-wise, or what you're drinking or exercising. Our mental state and our emotional state can affect the body just as much.
You mentioned this when we just got going. When you talk about even potential emotions or wounds from when we were inside our mother's womb, how does that work? Or ancestral wounds that are there, how does that work?
Yeah, well, it's just like DNA. We receive a download and the genetic blueprint from our parents when we're being developed in the womb. But it can also happen emotionally wise as well, particularly within the third trimester of your mother carrying you. Those emotions that she's feeling within that third trimester. If, for example, and I'll just stick with negative because that's what I work with, negative trapped emotions that are within the body. But let's say that the mother is experiencing great anxiety, or she's experiencing some level of abuse and she's feeling rejected and she's feeling fear and she's feeling abandonment, then that energy that's flowing through her body is getting trapped within the organs. And then the last trimester, a lot of development is going into giving this baby everything that it needs. And the baby is taking in all of it, all of the emotions, all of the thought forms that the mother is having. That's being downloaded into the DNA process, not just the genetic, but also the epigenetic, if I'm saying that correctly, can download into the body of this fetus. And so we come out of the womb with this ancestral DNA that is within us. And it can stem not just from our mother, not just from our father, but our grandmother and our grandfather and so on and so forth, particularly 7 generations back is what it says. So from 7 generations back, we can receive a download. And this is what people really in the spiritual community or religious community, this is where it comes to when people say things like generational curses and dysfunctional patterns. If we look at it from a psychology perspective, just different dysfunctional patterns that can stem down from generation to generation. You just come into existence. And so it can be cultural, it can be environmental, and it can be inherited energy that we can take on that's really shapes us into who we are.
Wow. So how do you help people identify that? If it happened when you're in the womb and it was something that your actual mother went through, how do you help people identify where that imprint is?
Absolutely. So what I do through emotion code and body code, I energetically connect with people. And what I focus on primarily is what we call the heart wall. So the heart wall is energy that can be trapped around the heart. And the heart is so important that it is flowing not only physically, because it's pumping fluid and blood all throughout the body, and it's giving that blood flow to all of your organs. It's important because it is the center of our life. It is like what some people call our second brain in some ways. It is where the soul resonates. It connects our upper chakras and our lower chakras. So the heart needs to be centered because it's connecting those upper with the lower chakras. But when we have negative, low vibrational energy trapped around the heart, it's hard for us to live a balanced and aligned life. And so what I do is help people to clear that energy around the heart. And I'll give you an example of heartache in response to your question. Let's say that your mother experienced some deep level of heartache, or your father experienced some deep level of heartache where they may have experienced abandonment within their family. Their mother wasn't able to be there for them and they lacked emotional connection with their parents. And then they pass that heartache on to you. And then let's say you grow up this happy-go-lucky child and your parents say, I'm going to give you all the love that I didn't receive. Okay. But then you have your first breakup. And then all of a sudden that heartache that your mother felt from abandonment or your father felt from abandonment, it is activated within you, within your DNA. And then all of a sudden you're like, why is it so hard for me to get over James? Why is it so hard for me to get over Jenny? And it could be because you've now activated that emotional trigger that has happened, that feeling of heartache. And so now you've activated that within your own download, your energetic blueprint. And so now you're struggling to release this heartache. You're struggling to move on and to heal this wound because it's not just yours. It could be your mother's. It could be your father's. And so sometimes we have to clear that energy out, not just for ourselves, but for healing that, and that we don't pass that on to our children, because we can pass that very energetic download, decoding down to our children as well.
So how does emotion code and body code work? What is a session like?
What we do is we use a technique called muscle testing. And muscle testing is a technique that anyone can do. It's a form of kinesiology. And what we're doing is just connecting energetically, connecting spiritually, because we're all connected vibrationally, frequently. We really are. And so I just do that through the training that I've received from Dr. Bradley Nelson and the Emotion Code. There's a book out called Emotion Code, written by Dr. Bradley Nelson, who has created this entire certification program around. And what we do is he teaches us how to do muscle testing, where we can ask specific questions, yes or no questions of the subconscious, of our inner workings, and get responses. So we push down on different muscle points of the body when we ask yes or no questions to identify specific emotions that can be trapped within the body. And once we identify those emotions from a list of emotions, we can use magnets to clear that energy from the energetic blueprint. So we can clear it from our emotional body, mental body, spiritual body, physical body, and different levels of our energetic bodies to clear that energy out. Now, when we use magnets because it is actual energy that's firing off within our body. It is actual vibrational frequency and energy that is firing off, that is resonating within the body. And so when we apply intention, which the intention is, I want to clear this energy from my body. I want to release this. I want to let it go. And I want to transmute this energy. That's the intent. And then as we apply the magnet to the body, the magnet helps to neutralize that energy within the body. So it doesn't mean that you'll never experience that heartache again. It doesn't mean you'll never experience heartache. You'll never experience anger. You'll never experience fear again, but it clears it from a build up. It clears that energy. So now you can get less triggered and you can consciously think, okay, how do I want to respond to this situation, opposed to being triggered by an emotion that's been trapped. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think when you mentioned the magnet, for people who may have virtual sessions with you, this is something that you're even able to do that part of the work virtually. Can you talk about that?
Yes, because energy flows through the airwaves, just the energy of electricity, just like I can talk on the phone to someone who lives in Timbuktu. It is energy that's being transmuted between me and whoever I'm connected with. So what I do, I've met with people all over the world. And so I just, with their permission, I connect with them energetically and I take on within myself their vibration, their energy, their frequency. And so as I'm clear using the magnet on my physical body, it's helping to clear their energetic blueprint. And I tell you, it is just as potent. It is just as powerful as if they were sitting right in front of me.
And we can attest because we had it.
I was going to say, Felicia, another thing that I love about the session, which I thought was so helpful to me personally, was not only did you do the session one-on-one, but then you give homework for people to do. So it's not just a one and done. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Absolutely. When I first started this practice about 9 years ago, I would just do what I was trained to do, which was you identify the emotions, you release them. But I kept finding that people just kept coming back. They just kept coming back. And sometimes people, because they can feel such a release, they just want to keep coming back. But what I started to realize just a year within practice is that people keep thinking the same way. So when they would come back to me, some of the same emotions would be there. And it's because they weren't changing how they were thinking. And so I started to then research behavioral therapy and transformational life coaching and learning different mindset techniques that would really help people to assess how they're thinking, because that's how our emotions are formed. They're formed based off of our perception and based off of our thoughts and our mindset. And so if we don't shift that, then it's hard to shift your emotional state, because you're going to keep having the same stinking thinking, creating the same stinking feeling. And if you don't adjust that, then you can't make the changes. And so what I always do without fail is give people homework assignments, because once you release the emotion, you want to put into practice some technique, some type of work that you can do to retrain your way of thinking and to think differently.
I know for me personally, in our session, there were things that bubbled up that I love that you talked about the ancestral, because there were things that bubbled up for me that my whole life I've wrestled with and couldn't understand why it was there. And I think you helped me see that it was there for me, but it was there for my mom. It was there for my grandmother. And I'm sure it was for my great grandmother as well. So I think this technique really helps you identify those places where you may be holding things in that you don't even realize are yours. And I think that's real value that a lot of people can experience with this.
Yeah. And I think too that it's important that we recognize that we are in a day and age where there's so healing that's available. There's so much counseling. There's so much alternative options that we have in order to go within ourselves, to understand ourselves, know ourselves, and heal. Our parents and our parents' parents and so on and so forth, they really didn't have opportunities to really go and sit on people's couch and sit and open up their heart. They were told, you work, you provide, you give the basics of what is needed. Are you eating, child? Are you sleeping? You got a place to sleep. You got a place to live. I'm providing for you. And so they weren't really put in many positions where they can talk about what's going on the inside of them. They just sucked it up, grinned and bared it, kept going, and wasn't processing it. But we, in this day and age, we have an opportunity to unpack a lot, and we're able to release and heal not only ourselves, but then set our children up as well, and don't have to carry this energy on. Now, I'm going to share a little bit of something that can show you just how potent and powerful it is, that doing this work is not just beneficial for you, but it's also beneficial for your ancestors, even if they've passed on and gone. I have inner knowing. So when I connect with people, sometimes I just know things. I can just connect with them and I can know different things they're dealing with. And doing this kind of work just kind of activates that. Some people have the ability to see in the spirit realm and can see different orbs or see different energy. I've seen that and experienced that a little bit in life, but not as much. It's not as prominent as my ability to know and foresee. But I went to an event where a woman was able to see when you connect with someone, sometimes your ancestors who have held that energy of anger, depression, resentment, a miasm that they may have lived with, when a practitioner activates that trapped energy on the inside of the participant, then the ancestor, their energy will come into the healing space. I have personally felt this myself, and they will come because they carry that energy into wherever they're going in the past life. And so when the participant is now activating, you're activating that whatever trapped energy, the ancestor will come into the space. And as the practitioner clears that energy from the participant, it also clears that energy from the ancestor. And that's a karmic energy that we can talk about, that we can carry on from past life to past life. And so when you do this work for yourself, you're doing it for your mother, for your grandmother, for your great grandmother, and so on and so forth. You're clearing that energy that they did not have the opportunity to do for themselves.
Can that also impact your own children then? Once you've cleared it?
Absolutely, it can, because you can clear it for yourself and you can set the intention not to extend this over into your children. Now, how this works for children in the studies that we've seen is that when a parent, let's say we clear it for ourselves, for our children, it can be automatically done.
Wow.
When your children are younger. Now, when the children become older, around 13 and 14, a lot of their ways, in some ways, are already set. But when we're working with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old children, you can automatically, when you clear the work from you, it can clear from your children. And they don't even have to deal with your dysfunctional parental family drama.
I love the sound of that. Felicia, tell us about your journey and how you got into this work in the first place.
Yes, I'm still surprised to this day how I ended up on this journey, but I'm so grateful to be on it. My background is actually in business management as far as my studies. I went to college, I got into business management. My goal was to be into human resources. I graduated and I started doing human resource internships. And then I wanted to go into ministry as well, because on a personal level, my faith was extremely important to me. So I did them both. I went to graduate school to become a minister, and then I was also doing human resources, and it was a great place to be. But then my children started to experience some sicknesses, and it was more like eczema. And no matter how many doctors I went to, no one could find a solution to their problem. And I was so frustrated, because on one end, I'm a woman of faith. Something should be shifting and changing in their life as far as this eczema. It's just extreme. And they kept giving me the steroids and to apply to their skin, and it kept making it worse, and it was horrible. So I just started to dive into holistic practices to find out, okay, doctors can help me. There's an answer. And I'll never forget the day my daughter went to a doctor and he told her the condition that she had, there is no cure for this. He just said, she will have this for the rest of her life. And I said inside myself, I said, you are lying. That is not true for my daughter. I will not receive that. And so I just started to dive into holistic practices and start looking for things. And at the time I was working for Travelocity and it was a corporate position. I loved my job. I enjoyed it, but an opportunity came to work at a holistic center as the business manager. And I thought, oh my gosh, this will be a great way for me to manage an office and then also learn more about this holistic stuff that I'm loving. And so I ended up quitting my job and I got this job as the office manager at a holistic center. And I did it for a year and I hated it. I cried every day. It was so stressful and it was so much work. And I felt like I'm really not able to dive in and get the holistic principles that I really want because it's a lot of work. It was a business, the office manager. So I was still doing all this logistic stuff. And the naturopath was like, look, so many people are coming to me for physical issues, but a lot of them have mental, emotional issues, and I don't have the time to deal with it. Can you look into some practices to help heal some emotional wellness? And I said, absolutely. Because she started to notice that when people were checking out in the office, they would really break down and tell me their life stories. And I would be shocked, like, why are you telling me this? And I would find myself stepping away and praying with people and speaking into people's lives and sharing things with them. And so when my supervisor, the naturopath, said, hey, look into these emotional healing practices, I started to look into all different options, and emotion code and body code just really captured my heart. I went through the training and I started practicing, and I did it at this holistic center for 5 years. And I loved it. I grew so much. But then I found myself growing out of the box a little bit. And so I ended up leaving, and I've been practicing at home for 3.5 years in my home space. And I'm able to homeschool my children, and it just really set me free. So I've been doing it in my own home space for about 3.5 years.
Several questions. One of which is, did you end up solving your daughter's eczema?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was connected to the gut and the digestive system. And so what doctors kept giving me were these steroid creams that would help to clear it up on the outside, but it wasn't dealing with the internal thing that was happening on the inside that was causing their breakouts. And so once I started learning from the place where I work, the Holistic Center, to clean up the gut and to heal the gut, then that really is what healed them from their eczema issues. And also from MRSA. My daughter had MRSA. That's the one that the doctor was like, that's incurable. There's no way she's going to be able to stop this. And it was oregano oil. Oregano oil cured my daughter from MRSA.
How did you even come to that?
This is the truth. My daughter, she kept getting these boils when she was a toddler, and they were extremely painful. I don't know how she got them, but I would have to take her to the doctor every time, and she would get these boils on her legs, and I would take her to the doctor. I would have to hold her down. The nurse would have to hold her down. They would have to press these boils, and they would just spurt, and it was horrible. And so whenever she would go to bed, and I had my younger daughter as well, I would have to clean everything. Every time she would go to the bathroom, I would have to clean after behind her. Every time she would wake up, I have to wash her sheets. It was horrible. This went on for 9 months. I took her to an infectious disease doctor. I took her to multiple doctors. They kept coming back. I literally fell on my face one day, exhausted in her bedroom. And I said, God, I need an answer today. I can't live like this. Because when you would touch yourself, if I were to clean up after her, it's highly infectious. And so one time I touched my head somehow and I got a big boil on my head.
No.
And I was grateful for it because it was so painful. And so when I had to burst it, I knew what she was feeling and experiencing. And it's horrible. It was horrible. And I was like, I can't let my toddler keep going through this. I literally fell on my face in her bedroom after I cleaned it down with Clorox bleach. I said, God, there has to be an answer. And I just stayed up and started researching. I found out about oregano. I went to literally GNC and I got a bottle of oregano oil for $17.99. Now, at this point, 9 months of taking her on and off to the doctor every time she's get a boil, infectious disease doctor, creams you wouldn't believe. She was on 5 bouts of antibiotics because they kept giving her antibiotics. That was their cure and it wasn't doing anything. A bottle of oregano oil for $17.99. I put it on the bottom of her feet. I would set my alarm clock. I would go in before she wakes up, put it on the bottom of her feet. At night, I would get up in the morning and put it on the bottom of her feet. And I did this for 10 days. My daughter did not have another MRSA breakout. She was 3. She didn't have another breakout until she was 13 years old.
Wow.
And the doctor said she would never. And so when it happened when she was 13, I just applied it to the bottom of her feet again. She was old enough to do it. It went away. Haven't seen a breakout since then.
Wow.
A
Power of a mama.
Yes.
Well, my other question though for you was in how you came into this connection with spirit, this understanding and belief of energy. How did that, I know you told us about that journey, but how did you foster that?
Yes. Before I even started working for the Holistic Center, when I was working at Travelocity, I ended up researching what are some ways to feel better, because at that point I just had a divorce. I was a single mother of 4 children. And even though I felt I'm free from this unhealthy relationship, I'm in a great place. I'm able to care for my children. I'm still very unhappy. And I was like, what is going on? God, I'm doing everything I know to do. I don't understand why I'm so sad, like such deep sadness. And so I started to research and I found out about emotional freedom technique. And this was my first intro into energy work. And so I started to watch these videos on emotional freedom technique, which is also called tapping. And I started to go to YouTube University and just start watching all of these videos. And I started to tap. The first thing you say with emotional freedom technique is I love and completely accept myself. To be honest, I'm in my 30s and I started doing this. And as soon as I started tapping and said, I love and completely accept myself, I broke down crying because I realized I have never said I love myself. To be honest, I never had the thoughts that I should love myself.
I bet you most people haven't.
Oh my gosh, I never had the concept of I should love myself. And I just started bawling, just bawling. This is so sad that I've never said these words. And to be honest, as I started tapping and doing the work, I had started out tapping with my eyes closed. I literally had to go into the closet and be in darkness because I felt so horrible that I never loved myself and I didn't really feel it. But I needed to do this work because I was like, God, something has to give. I can't be so sad raising my children and teaching them love and all of this. And I feel so icky on the inside. So I started tapping in the dark. I love and completely accept myself with tears running down my face. And I graduated to saying it outside in my room on my bed. And then I graduated to looking in the mirror, tapping and saying, I love and completely accept myself. And so then that was my first experience with energy healing, because it is a form of slight acupuncture. Instead of using needles, what you're doing is tapping on different meridian parts of the body, and you are clearing subconscious beliefs that do not serve you. And so I started tapping on depression, and I would just start telling the truth. I am so depressed right now. I feel so sad. I am so tired of feeling sad. I really don't love myself, do I? You just tap on what's true, and then you flip the script and you start to tap on what do you desire. I love myself. I feel joy and happiness every day. I am so blessed and full of joy. And you all, it started to work. And I started to tell my children, when I get home, when I would pick them up, give me 15 minutes. Just give your mama 15 minutes to go, and I would go tap. And then it's like I would burst out of the room like Superwoman, and I would come out and I would cook and spend time with them. But I needed those 15 minutes. And that is what started my journey on understanding the emotions, the mind-body connection, and then healing the emotions. And that was the beginning of my journey. Really working on myself and healing myself from that depression.
Wow. Incredible story.
And that led you to find these other resources, right?
Yes, it really activated me. I think it activated my healing essence that I have with within myself. Because I understand in past life and past experiences, I've had many lives where I've been a healer. And so the pursuit of my own healing activated my healing abilities on the inside of me that I can use those for others. Kind of just like that wounded healer, the wounded warrior. I had to be wounded. I had to be broken. And I really was broken through divorce. Divorce really is like a death. And it was through that death that I really was able to activate who it is that I'm really here to be on the highest level, and wasn't able to do that without experiencing the depths of depression and the depths of that death, and then rising up from that. And so I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the journey.
Wow. And you talk about so many modalities, even in that last answer, the past life regression, the tapping. What other modalities do you practice?
One of the most powerful and potent to me is breath work. Breath work will change your life forever. And the reason why is because breath is our life. We are our breath. When we take in that breath, that's what breathes life into us. And the last thing that we do when we leave this earth is we take that last breath. So in all actuality, our soul, it is our breath. And so a lot of times we can get so much stuck and stagnant within this physical body. And we just go through taking for granted our breath. We breathe shallow breaths. It's free. It keeps us alive. We don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. But if we learn how to wheel and direct our breath, it has the potential to clear energy out, to activate our chakras, and to heal us on deep levels. When we learn how to regulate our breath and do certain type of techniques in our breathing, it can heal us on multiple levels. And so I learned about this through going through a women's retreat that forever changed my life. And we started doing rebirthing. I don't know if you ever heard of rebirthing, but it is a form of a breathing pattern that you do, just pumping the stomach in and out, and you do it for a good 45 minutes. And I went to this retreat and I did it. And I tell you, it cleared so much weight from me that I was carrying that I didn't even know. And it activated me to a whole nother way of living, being, expressing my life. It is what connected me to my current husband. I have the most amazing husband. I know you all are probably married to amazing men, but I tell you, I think my husband is the best in the world. And it was through the healing practices that I went through that raised my vibrational frequency that helped me to attract into my life the caliber of man that I have now today. And so it was clearing out old stagnant energy, ways of thinking and being. And I use breath work every single day. My husband says he thinks I'm addicted because it's the thing that keeps me sane. I found out about inward breath work. It's the website inwardbreathwork.com. It will change your whole life. It's amazing. Amazing.
How long do you do that?
I use inward breath work, and they have breath work practices from 5 minutes to 55 minutes. And so I just choose which one I want to do. I do some that are particularly just for in the morning and activating certain energies. You can do them for if you need energy, if you need to ground yourself, if you need to release shame, if you need to release grief. So many different breath work techniques that you can use, and they have almost all of them on their website. If you want to do it for a long extended period of time, if you just want a quick productivity boost, I like that one. If I get a little low in the middle of the day, they have a 5-minute productivity boost where you just do a strong breath work for 5 minutes and you can jump up. It's like taking a shot of caffeine or express. Inwardbreathwork.com. It is everything. It has changed. Oh, I love it. I love it.
I'm checking that out. Who doesn't need that? I'm a fan of breath work in general, but to have that as an instant resource, because I haven't found that, I feel like that would be really helpful.
And they use powerful music. They guide you through the practice. If people have any trouble with focusing, it's amazing because it helps you to focus in on what's being said. And then they use the music too, that is just so soothing, and you will feel a shift every day as you do this. So it's powerful.
And then we know that you're also fond of ayahuasca. We've talked a little bit about psychedelics and plant medicine on our podcast, but we'd love to get your take on what you call the grandmother.
Yes, ayahuasca will change your life forever and a day. It is a powerful plant medicine. And typically for people, I recommend it's something that you want to call out to you. It's not something that you necessarily want to just seek out. I want to experience ayahuasca because People can partake of ayahuasca and not really have the best experience if they're just seeking a high or an experience. It is something that you want to honor, to respect, because it does come with this grandmother energy to really help navigate you on a spiritual journey to heal some deep wounds. You don't ever want to go into your grandmother's house and just start going in her refrigerator and taking stuff, not acknowledging her, not bringing her flowers. You wouldn't treat your grandmother like that. So when you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, you want it to be like, come on, baby, come on in. Let's do this work. Let's dive within. And when you go and you partake, you always want to make sure it's with someone, a shaman that you're being drawn to, or is somebody that you know. There's an amazing documentary out called The Reality of Truth. If there's anyone who wants to know more about ayahuasca, what it does, how it affects the reality of truth, is a powerful documentary on ayahuasca and the plant medicine and the journey of transformation that you can experience in your life. I would not be the healer that I am today, the woman that I am today, if it were not for ayahuasca taking me on a journey of healing and restoration and awareness. If you're struggling in your spiritual life, sometimes you ever feel like you're at a glass ceiling, or you're just at the cusp and you just don't know what is it going to take just to burst me through and allow me to become who it is I know I feel like I am on the inside. Ayahuasca will take your spiritual journey from 5 to 25 in one night. In some places, I've heard that ayahuasca is like 10 years of counseling that you can experience in one night. And I'm a testament to that. It's changed everything for me. And the grandmother spirit.
Yeah. And when you've experienced it or helped others, do you find afterwards, just like you give the homework in your sessions, what's that integration process like?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the most important. A lot of people go for the experience, and the experience can be so many ups and downs in and out of spiritual levels and a being and an expression. Some of you won't even understand while you're going through the ceremony that evening, but it is the after work that really is the transformative work. It's you sitting with yourself, sitting with other people who have experienced it, discussing your experience, letting those things come up to the surface, and the realization of what you've seen and the spiritual trip that you may have gone on your journey. It is processing that, allowing that understanding to unfold, journaling, asking yourself questions, sitting out in nature and grounding and sitting with the earth. And it pulls those understandings up so that you can start applying those understandings to your life. So it's not just the partaking of the medicine, but it is the integration of the medicine into your spiritual DNA that's really going to help you to transform. And you have to sit with it months, sometimes years afterwards, that medicine is still working within you.
Can you give us a snippet of your experience and what that felt like for you, Felicia? For somebody who hasn't gone through it or isn't familiar, what was it for you that caused such an impact?
That first time, because we know you've done it many times.
Whew, the first time was, and I'm going to say this because this may help someone, and this is an opportunity as well for me to be very vulnerable. And so I'm going to share it. It's not an easy thing to share. My very first ayahuasca ceremony, I wasn't given a lot of information. I took the first one, and I felt like my spirit was trying to leave my body. And I went over to my sister who had invited me, and I was like, my spirit is trying to leave. What am I supposed to do? She said, maybe you should go. Maybe you should find out where it's trying to go. But it's almost like losing control. But the big thing that I was shared with by the shaman is surrender. Surrender is the most important thing when it comes to partaking of ayahuasca. You want to come with the heart to say, God, I trust you. Spirit, I trust you. Whatever's going to happen, I trust it's going to be for my greatest good. And so my spirit started to leave my body. And the first thing my spirit did, it left, and one of my daughter's name, it was like something on the inside of me started to her name. And Felicia, got scared. I'm like, why am I hollering her name out on this floor in agony? And the grandmother spirit said to me, sexual trauma in your family is going to end with your daughter. So my daughter had experienced sexual molestation that I did not know about. I knew about it at this time, but I had just found out about it 2 years before. She never told me. And the spirit whispered to me that this sexual trauma is going to end with your daughter. And the grandmother spirit took me way back in my generational lineage. And I started to heal generational sexual trauma in my family line. I went on 3 trips in that night experience where grandmother spirit took me back to heal that sexual trauma within my family lineage. And it was exhausting. If you ever go through ayahuasca, it is not for the weak of heart. And it was so beautiful because it was literally like a grandmother came and she patted me on my shoulder the second time and she was like, come on, okay, it's time to go keep doing work. And my body would leave and it would go to another generational level, another generational line, and I would heal. And at the very end, I'll never forget when I was done doing the work, I was looking at a woman who was standing on a porch. She had a purple wrap around her head and she turned to me. We didn't communicate anything verbally, but she turned to me and telepathically, she said to me, thank you for doing this work. And then I went back into my body and I was exhausted. I literally felt like all of my life was leaving me, but I knew that I had done the generational work to heal sexual trauma within my line. And I was so grateful that it ended. And I was told in the beginning, it will end with your daughter. And it was so powerful. And so even now in my practice today, I started doing retreats are one of the things that I've started to do. And I did my first healing sexual trauma retreat in April of this year. And I did it because I found in my practice so many women were coming to me for one thing. And then when we would start discussing things and emotions would come up, so many of them experienced sexual trauma that my mind was blown. I'm like, this is an epidemic. Why is it? What is going on? I kid you not, about 80% of the women I would see, they would come for me with one thing, but sexual trauma would come up. Mm-hmm. And so I felt this compulsion to really, I need to help. And it took 4 years for me to put on this retreat. Because I had to deal with it within my own life and my own experience. And it's hard facing that, to not only to do the work for others, but I had to do the healing for myself and for my generational lineage.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Felicia. I'm sure there are people listening right now who can relate. And I know that was a lot to share. But what struck me is how beautiful you are for doing the work. I think one of the things that we talk about a lot is we can go through any of these modalities. It's like what you said before, it's what you carry afterwards. It's walking the walk through the pain, through the recovery, through the forgiveness, whatever it is that needs to be done. And that is the hard part. The ayahuasca, whatever treatment you go for, that's only going to open the door to the real work that has to start afterwards.
Absolutely. I think life will be so much easier for us if we would embrace the ideal and the concept that life is up and down, ins and out, ebbs and flow, darkness to light. That is life. And the more we can become aware of that and intentionally embrace when a dark season comes through, intentionally embrace when we are down in the valley, we got to realize that at the end of every valley is the beginning of a new mountain that's coming. You know what I'm saying? But if we can go through life from that state of awareness, then the valleys won't be so hard. They won't be so dark. They won't be so heavy because we know this is how life flows. So I'm going to go into the darkness because I know the deeper I go into the darkness, the brighter I'm going to become. The more I'm going to learn, grow, and expand and come more connected to the divine person and the divinity that I am. And so we can do it intentionally and on purpose, opposed to, damn, here's come the darkness again. I'm so sick and tired of the downs and the lows. And we can. Sometimes I get it. I get tired of it. But at the end of the day, I know it's going to be for my good. I'm going to choose to grow from it. I'm going to choose to learn from it. I'm going to choose to let it take me higher and not keep me down low, because I know we have the power to do that with our mind and our intention.
And it also reminds me of the analogy of this is Earth School. It's never over. I love what you said about the ups and downs. We're here to learn. We came here on purpose to learn, to evolve our souls, to heal generational wounds. And so having that perspective, I think, can help so many people who've never thought about it that way.
To just really be aware that I'm an eternal divine being. I am a soul. I'm not just a body. I'm a soul. And this soul is here to have experiences, to evolve. And so the more we can live from that perspective, I'm an eternal divine being. I'm an aspect of God here to have an experience. and here to evolve through those experiences. And when we become aware of that eternal divine being in essence, that we're not limited and confined to this body, then the more we can experience more of that divine energy, that divine power, that ability to operate as God and creators within our own individual lives.
Felicia, that minister in you is.
I know. I'm like, preach, please.
I had such a depth to that. All my life, I wanted to be a minister. And when I started going through this process of learning about energy healing, really from a religious perspective, this energy healing is not of God. Okay. And so growing up and wanting to be a minister all of my life, I had to die to that I could never be a traditional minister, but she is in me. And sometimes if I go to church, if I watch people ministering, it makes me feel, a part of me sometimes gets sad because I'm like, that's what I wanted to be and do. But I just have to find another way, a different way of sharing and expressing, but it's just in me. I don't think I could ever get away from that way of speaking and the fire that sometimes seems to come up in me.
Oh, we love your fire. We talked to you several times, and there are moments in our conversations, there are words and phrases that you use that have stayed with us, that we incorporate into our everyday. So I love that she's in you. She needs to be coming out in all of these ways.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I need to hear that.
And what does a minister do? They speak their truth. They inspire others. They encourage them to forgive themselves, to love themselves. So just because there's not a church over your head doesn't mean that you're not doing that work. You're just doing it in your own way. And what I love that you've brought to the table is, yes, let's do all these modalities, but you help people, you helped me recognize that there are things within me that I didn't even know were there. And for those who are going through those valleys of darkness, it's a really lonely place when you can't identify where that emotion is coming from and what's causing that despair and that sadness. And so utilizing these tools to really help identify where they are, that's the place where the work really begins. You have to recognize it. You have to shine the light on what it is, and then you can move forward. But until you know, it is really hard to move forward.
It is. It is. Knowledge and understanding is powerful. You still have to do the work. Once you get that knowledge and that understanding, that's just the first step. Awareness is just the first step. Now it's okay. Now what do I do that I have this new information? Because when we have that new information of what we're working with, if we don't do the work, it's just going to make us more sick.
Totally.
It's like you know what to do, but you're not doing it. And so, yeah, knowledge of what's going on, it can be very powerful.
And before we move on, what is the Ho'oponopono therapy?
Yeah, and people pronounce it in different ways. So however you said it is good. It really is a very simple practice. Some people say it's come from a Hawaiian therapy, and it's by a particular doctor who came into the awareness of using this technique. And it is simply using 4 statements. And these 4 statements are, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And this particular doctor, you can go onto YouTube and watch how he used this practice, but he worked in an insane institution. He was a psychologist, and he never saw one patient, and he helped to heal everyone that was in this asylum. And how he did it was he would go and he would open up their folder every day, and he would read through their folders, and he would just say to this energy, this vibration, this entity, this person, not say to them personally, but just to what he was reading, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And the concept is, once again, we're all connected. And so when he would set his intention to focus his mind on them, read about the details of this life, he would say to them, I love you. I love you because you exist. I love you because of who you are. I love you because you are connected to me. You are an aspect of God. I'm sorry for what you're experiencing. I'm sorry that you're trapped in your mind. I'm sorry that you've experienced whatever has led you to this place. I'm sorry for why you are experiencing life in this way. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, because if we're all energetically connected in some way, I'm playing a role in you being here, having this experience. Please forgive me for any role vibrationally, energetically that I'm playing in your life to be in this position. Thank you for existing. Thank you for being. Thank you for living. Thank you for not giving up. And so he would just just say this. And he would have the intention, and people started to heal. Their bodies started to heal. Their minds started to heal because he used his intention of saying, I love you. I'm sorry. I see you. Please forgive me. Thank you. And vibrationally, spiritually, it started to heal the people in their minds. And so when I watched this video, I said, you know what? This is a bunch of poppycock. And so I tried it one day, you all, I don't know if you have teenagers yet, but teenagers are something. Okay. I used to be one. We know. And so when they go through a stage of thinking they know it all, right? So I remember one time my son and we went toe to toe in an argument, and he left and he went to his room. It was at night, and I stayed up and I said, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And I put him on my mind, and I just started to say over and over again, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I kid you not. I got up the next morning. I went to open my door, and my son was standing there about to knock on the door. It startled me. And he just said, I'm sorry. I want you to know that he just came with an apology. And my son he never does that. He never had done that before, where he recognized where he was, came and apologized. His heart had been softened. And I just listened to him, and I said, you know what? It's okay. We're all good. We hugged. I went back in my room and I sat down. I was like, oh my goodness. Did that work? Did that really work? And I started to use it here and there in different ways. And then I started to share it with my clients. And I had some amazing stories of people would come back and have different changes within their relationship by using this technique. And it was phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Wow. That's
amazing.
Such a simple technique, as you said.
It's so simple. But you know what? You all, God is simple. Life is really, we make it complicated and we make it complex. So when we hear something this simple, we say, like I said, this is poppycock, until you start to apply these simple practices and you realize how powerful they are.
Definitely going to try that. Why not?
Why not? And what you're saying is, and how powerful we are. If these practices are powerful and we are powerful.
Our words are powerful. Just scripture says in multiple, whether it's a scripture in the Bible or it's also in the Kabbalah and other spiritual scriptures, but life and death is in the power of our tongue. We are the creators of our reality through what we speak and what we say. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So however we see ourselves, however we experience life, our mouth is going to profess that and say that. Therefore, we're going to have that experience. We create our reality through how we speak and how we see the world, so on and so forth. So when we want to be so careful with how we use our words, because they really do shape our reality, and they really can change everything for us, good or bad. You can say this actually over your body too as well. A lot of people use it in relationship to other people, but sometimes our relationship with ourselves and how we see ourselves and our physical body and health, we can heal it using this therapy of, I love you. I love my body, because we can judge our body, how it looks, how it feels, and it can't get away from us. So just like my son, he could leave the room and stop hearing what I had to say. But our bodies can never get away from what we're thinking and what we're feeling about it. And so we can use that same therapy on ourselves to tell our body that we love you. I love you, my body. I'm sorry for having neglected you or haven't treated you well or judged you. Please forgive me. Thank you for sustaining my life and allowing me to live out my life in this vessel. And so just saying these things can heal us on so many different levels.
Well, I feel like that should be a daily practice for people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It really should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along with the breath work.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We have covered it.
Felicia, we can have one-on-one sessions with you over Zoom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do one-on-one sessions. They can find it on my website, FeliciaGarrett.com. That's FeliciaGarrett.com. And you can first book a consultation. I don't do sessions with people without having a consultation first. And that free consultation, we talk about what makes you reach out to someone who does emotional healing work. And then I tell them what it is that I do. And then we make sure that we are fit for the work that they need. And for any of the sessions that I have, I always do a consultation first.
Such integrity and thoughtfulness behind all of your work. I know that we love that you customize it for each person. It's what are going to be the right practices for them. And I feel like that's what you can gain from a consultation for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Because people need different things. different modalities, different energy shiftings is needed for whatever they've gone through. So I rely a lot on my intuition. I rely a lot on just being divinely guided to provide people with the best service that I can possibly do. And there have been some people that I'm like, I think you need some different work that I am not able to provide. There are some people that are come that is so deep, or there's so much wounding that if I don't feel that I have the skill, the awareness in order to help them, then I'm free to guide them somewhere else where they can get the work that they need. But because there's different stages of healing that we have to go through, and I can send people on to different directions if it's needed.
Thank you. We're so grateful that now everyone can hear about your work. We're so grateful that we experienced your work, and we continue to utilize what we've learned, the healing that occurred in our everyday. And now we have even more ideas of what to do on a daily basis to keep ourselves and our energies and our souls in a place to receive and heal.
Awesome. Thank you. I've been honored to connect with you all and to hear about everything that you're doing and listening to some of your other podcasts. I'm so grateful. I'm learning a lot from that, just listening to people that you've had come on your show in the past. So thank you for the work that you do, because it helps even us that are practitioners to stay on top of our game and to learn new things as well. So I appreciate the work that you do.
Thanks so much, Felicia.
Thank you, Felicia. Hey!